Welcome to English Podcasts. Relax and enjoy your listening practice.
Sometimes a scientific discovery begins not with something completely new, but with a connection that nobody noticed before. That is what happened when researchers looked again at the enormous dust storm that covered Mars in 2018 and compared it with unusual activity coming from the Sun. At first, these appeared to be two separate events. One was happening inside the Martian atmosphere, while the other began millions of kilometers away in space. But the timing raised an interesting question. Could powerful solar activity somehow influence weather on another planet? In late May 2018, a dust storm began developing on Mars. It grew extremely quickly, covered about a quarter of the planet by June 12th, and surrounded almost the entire planet only a week later. The dust became so thick that it blocked sunlight from reaching NASA's Opportunity rover. Opportunity depended on solar panels to recharge its batteries, so without enough sunlight, the rover lost power and stopped communicating with Earth. Engineers tried for months to restore contact, but the mission eventually came to an end. It was a painful moment because the rover had been operating on Mars for almost 15 years, even though its original mission was planned to last only about 90 days. At roughly the same time as the dust storm, Mars was also hit by a solar energetic particle event. This happens when the Sun releases a large number of fast-moving charged particles into space. These particles can travel across the solar system and interact with a planet's atmosphere, increasing radiation levels, producing auroras, and affecting atmospheric temperatures. Researchers studied measurements collected by the European Space Agency's Trace Gas Orbiter. They examined 5 solar particle events that reached Mars between 2018 and 2021. Most of them caused little noticeable change in the lower atmosphere. However, during the 2018 dust storm, instruments recorded temperature increases of around 50 degrees Celsius at altitudes of approximately 75 and 125 kilometers. Now, this does not mean that the solar storm definitely caused the dust storm. Mars was already experiencing a huge movement of dust, and dust itself absorbs sunlight and heats the atmosphere. Scientists are careful about this because two events happening at the same time do not automatically prove that one created the other. But, well, this is where the story becomes meaningful. We often imagine planets as separate worlds, each with its own weather and environment. In reality, they all exist inside a larger system shaped by the Sun. Solar activity does not simply provide light and warmth. It also sends radiation, energy, and particles across enormous distances. Understanding this connection could be very important for future missions to Mars. Solar storms may affect communication systems, scientific instruments, spacecraft electronics, and the health of astronauts. If solar activity can also influence atmospheric conditions, future explorers may need to consider both local Martian weather and space weather when planning their work. I mean, the most interesting lesson is not only about Mars. It is about how connected everything really is. A storm beginning on the surface of the Sun may travel through space and possibly affect the atmosphere of a planet millions of kilometers away. Even distant worlds are not truly isolated because they all live under the influence of the same star.